Well, good morning and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning, and I'm so glad you've joined us. We've got a very busy show this morning. We're going to hear a clip from Assemblyman Phil Palmisano as New York lawmakers express their disdain for, quote, dictatorship budget process. Yes, yesterday Governor Hochul announced that there was a budget deal, and Carl Hastie came out and said, no, there is not a deal. It was quite a mess. Well, we're going to be talking about that with former Congressman, current Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski in the 7 o'clock hour. Before that, we'll talk a little bit about it with New York State Comptroller candidate Joseph Hernandez. He's going to be joining us for quite a lengthy interview. So that's coming up, and we'll have to make sure that we get that in, and Joe in, and all your comments, and all your waves. We start with this comment from a viewer who would have possibly seen this coming, and they sent a text that received, due to weather conditions in the campground, and this is in reference to Watkins Glen, all incoming campers will be sidelined at 8:30 p.m. tonight and not permitted to park in their campsites. Incoming campers will be staged at gates 1, 2, and 6, without reading the whole comment. And we had talked extensively about Watkins Glen yesterday. Good news, though, coming from Don Berlew and the folks at Watkins Glen International. It has been announced that next year, the 2027 NASCAR race weekend will take place at Watkins Glen in September, like last year, so they can play a key role in the NASCAR Cup Series champion as part of the chase. So that's welcome news as the speculation started to rise. I'm glad that NASCAR maybe made a good decision there and said, okay, let's get this announcement out early because obviously people are upset. You've seen the pictures if you're on social media at all of people being stuck, the mud holes at the campgrounds. So people started to speculate, is this going to be the end of Watkins Glen? Are they going to keep moving it until it looks no longer profitable? But it looks as if NASCAR got the message, and it will move again next year into September, so they can be a key role in NASCAR Cup Series championship as part of the chase. And more details and specifics on that to come. But obviously, as we said yesterday, it's so important to realize this was a NASCAR decision. I've seen so many people online making the false accusation that somehow this was Don Berlew or the folks at Watkins Glen International that wanted the early May Mother's Day race in upstate New York. Of course, no one on the ground here in the Watkins Glen area would have chosen May. But here we are. Are you going to the race this weekend? Are you at the race? I don't know if you could catch me up there. Maybe. But yes, I mentioned that the New York lawmakers are expressing disdain for this budget process. As a matter of fact, in this piece, and I believe it was from Spectrum, they quoted, friend of Frankly Speaking, State Senator Tom O'Mara, as saying, unless you have the leaders of both the Senate and Assembly saying there's a deal, we don't know what it is. And there are major issues out there right now that are concerning that New Yorkers deserve to know about in advance of us passing budget bills. Now, Democrats are turning on Governor Hochul. Democrat Assembly member Emily Gallagher said, we need the voters to team up with us and show the state that we actually want our democracy to work. We don't want a dictatorship, and that's really what is becoming. This is becoming with the governor making the budget last the entire legislative session. Some Assembly members said that Hochul's focus is using her power to gut the climate law and double down on fossil fuels. I hardly believe that. I don't see a scenario where we ever say that Governor Hochul really gutted that climate policy. But since we mentioned it, what a perfect time, because there was another extender voted on. Let's hear from our good friend, and it is Friday, so it's only appropriate. Let's hear from Phil Palmisano, who as of right now is scheduled for next Friday. As you can imagine, things are fluid with the budget, but next Friday, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano on. Today, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski, but let's hear from Assemblyman Palmisano.
Madam Speaker, my colleagues, here we are with our 10th budget extender. We've only passed one budget bill. We still have 9 bills left to pass, 9 budget bills left to pass. And I appreciate my conversation with the chairman. I'm glad we've got out of batting practice, and I remember we got past the rain delay and the snowstorm, but now we're on the field. But you know, that cloud is omnibus, and omnibus, as he said, and he said there's no, as he said, there's really no deal. There's a framework. I'm happy to see that things are moving in the right direction, but are we getting close? When will we get close? When will we finalize it? We don't know. And with the policy and the budget, that delays that process. I know that's concerns have been raised on both sides. But if we are getting there, I mean, that's welcome news for the people of New York who have really waited for more than a month for some certainty and stability in this process from this House, the House down the hall, and the governor. Now, if we're getting there, if those pieces of magnets are about ready to drop, the focus must turn to transparency and review. With the potential agreement now being announced, it's my hope is that the members of the legislature and the public will also receive an updated spending plan that reflects that agreement. That's imperative because it's critically important that members understand not just the policy headlines, not just the press releases, but the actual fiscal framework of this budget before final bills are brought to this floor for a vote. What are the final numbers, spending numbers going to be? How much is the state increasing spending? What assumptions are being made about revenues, reserves, and out-year debt gap projections? We need that information. Those are not minor details. They are central to understanding the long-term impact of this nearly over $250 billion budget. $250 billion, I just wanted to say that. Everyone says 268, $250 billion. That is a lot of money. And I hope we remember in those discussions as we're wrapping this up that it is not our money, it's the people's money. And part of that is, in dealing with that, is an updated financial plan is essential for transparency, accountability, and informed decision-making. Again, this is needed. We need that information. The members of this chamber should not be asked to vote on thousands of pages of budget bills without first seeing the overall spending picture those bills create. And the same is true, as I mentioned with the chairman, for the 3-day aging process. That's the constitutional requirement. And I know we're late. We know we're late, and I know there's a rush, but given the serious financial impacts of a nearly over $250 billion budget, I think an extra 3 days, I mean, the governor says we can wait for a good budget. Other people say we can wait for a good budget. We need to wait for a transparent budget that allows for the constitutional requirements of a thorough, transparent analysis and review. That is what the people of this state deserve. That is what the people of this state want. The aging process exists for a reason. It does give our staffs and members and the public time to properly review this legislation before it becomes law. And especially after this delayed budget process and policy that was added in the governor's 30-day amendments, it's important in the final stages that we're open and deliberate in this process and not just rush to say we finished. We know we're late. An extra 3 days is not going to be problematic. It's about transparency and accountability. And if there's confidence in the agreement, then there should also be confidence in allowing there should also be time to allow for adequate review of that budget and the policies and the fiscal implications of it. At the end of the day, my colleagues, New Yorkers are not just looking for a budget to be finished, they are looking for a budget they can trust. So as we move forward, I hope we keep that in mind. Again, I will say, just for the record, I will be voting for this extender because it's imperative that we keep our government open. It's imperative that we continue to pay our state employees who do such a great and dedicated job for the people of this state. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And we thank Assemblyman Phil Palmisano for that message. Okay, we've got to go through some quick headlines. We've got to take some breaks a little early. The U.S. launches self-defense strikes after Iran targets Navy destroyers, but the U.S. officials insist the ceasefire still stands as Trump downplays it, saying it was love taps. 3 world-class American destroyers just transited very successfully out of the Strait of Hormuz under fire. There was no damage done to the 3 destroyers, he said. These boats went to the bottom of the sea, meaning the Iranian boats, quickly and efficiently. Missiles were shot at our destroyers and were easily knocked down. Likewise, drones came and were incinerated while in the air. They drop ever so beautifully down to the ocean, very much like a butterfly dropping to its grave. Wow, Trump's getting a little poetic. saying it was just a love tap. The ceasefire is going. It is still in effect. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio in just mere moments. We'll be talking with Joseph Hernandez, candidate for New York State Comptroller. Okay, by the way, quickly, no way to segue between these. Trump administration is to begin releasing highly anticipated UFO and extraterrestrial life files. The time frame was disclosed during a West Wing meeting yesterday with Representative Tim Burkett, a member of the House Oversight Committee's task force on the declassification of federal secrets. The files will begin today. They'll be released some today, months after President Trump ordered to get the ball rolling. Burkett said it's going to start tomorrow. It's going to have some stuff in there from pilots and maybe one video. Ooh. Pilot materials could refer to encounters that American military pilots had with UFOs while on active duty. Also, yesterday, Trump demanded Hakeem Jeffries be charged with inciting violence for his, quote, maximum warfare rhetoric. Remember all this rhetoric that the Democrats keep pushing, and then they tell Trump to tone it down when Trump is the one that has been, at least 3 assassination attempts at this point? But it's Trump that needs to tone it down as Hakeem Jeffries is screaming maximum warfare. Trump wrote on True Social, this lunatic, Hakeem, low IQ Jeffries, should be charged with inciting violence. He included images of Jeffries standing with a sign displaying the words maximum warfare and the faces of Trump and his aide, James Blair, alongside an image 3 days later of alleged assassin Cole Allen storming the Secret Service checkpoint at the Washington Hilton. Should Hakeem Jeffries be charged with inciting violence? He asked his 12.6 million followers. A spokesperson for Jeffries referred Fox News Digital to a social media post where the top Democrat labeled Trump's comments as another deranged rant. Okay. And I'm always trying to look out for the loyal viewers of Frankly Speaking. So I want you to grab your notebook so that you too can pass the president's physical fitness test. Yes, he brought it back for school-age children, but they also put it out for everyone. So let's look how you can win. I don't think you win anything. How you could pass the president's physical fitness test. Crunches. On average, they said the minimum number of crunches you should be able to do consecutively varies by age group. Here you go. In your 20s, 40 to 50. 30s, 30 to 40. In your 40s, 20 to 30. In your 50s, 15 to 25. And if you are 60 plus, you should be able to do 10 to 20 crunches. How about push-ups? If you're in your 20s, 15 to 30. If you're in your 30s, 12 to 25. If you're in your 40s, 10 to 20. If you're in your 50s, 8 to 15. In your 60s, 6 to 12. And in your 70s, 5 to 10, but do knee push-ups. If you're in your 80s, 3 to 7 knee push-ups. And 90s, 2 to 5 knee push-ups. And finally, squats. Let's go 50 plus, shall we? Our 30s and 40s, 50 nonstop body weight squats or 10 squats holding 50 to 60% of your body weight. 50s, you need 40 nonstop body weight squats or 10 squats with 40% to 50% of your body weight. 60s, 30 nonstop body weight squats or 10 squats holding 30% of your body weight. And finally, 70s and up, 20 nonstop body weight squats or 10 squats with 20% of your body weight. Whew. Just looking out for you folks. All right, we got to take a short break because when we return, we are going to be talking with Joseph Hernandez. Actually, do I have time? Yeah, Joseph Hernandez is coming up here in just a moment. Again, if you are just joining us, Watkins Glen announced yesterday that the race, the 2027, not this year, of course, 2027 NASCAR race weekend will take place in September. Maybe NASCAR learned a little bit after seeing the footage. A lot of campers who've paid good money, not able to get to their campsite. We've seen, and some people, you wonder how they ever got off the path. Some of those huge, looks like rock tour vehicles. That's a little different. But when you see some of these regular RVs that are sunk, it sounds like it's quite a mess. So it looks as if they've made the right decision. Comment from Mark. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning, Mark. I'd fail the physical fitness test. Thanks, Mark. I think I would too. I think there might be many people. And that's why I thought I'd read it. Have a little fun this morning. But thank you, Mark, for that little bit of humor and very succinct. You made no qualms about it. All right, let's take that break. When we come back, I want you to hear this. I am going to post on YouTube later. We'll post it on our website. This is the Republican running for New York State Comptroller to take out Tom DiNapoli. This is a part of the ticket with Bruce Blakeman, who we had on a couple weeks ago. Of course, Bruce Blakeman running for New York State Governor. So we are right now, after this break, going to hear from Joseph Hernandez. You do not want to miss this. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We're broadcasting from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, Joseph Hernandez, running for New York State Comptroller. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Delighted to be here with you.
I'm glad you found the time. It sounds like you're a very busy man.
Oh, it's all good.
It's part of the job, right?
It is. It's hard work, but it's all good.
Well, you're a busy man. Why did you decide to run for New York State Comptroller?
Well, this is it starts really in my personal life story, which is I came to this country at the age of 7 as an immigrant, and I came here legally. I like to always remind people. Yes. And my father was a political prisoner, and we came here with nothing. Wow. My father washed dishes. My mom, she cleaned houses when we were at school, just to put food on our table. And we were taught some very important lessons. The first one is to work hard, because nothing is free. To get educated, which is one of the things we did, and to love America. That was really instilled in us from the very beginning. And the last thing they reminded us is at some point in our lives, we had to give back to this great society that gave us so much. So I'm running to repay my debt to America. I mean, that's really the reason I'm doing it.
Did you ever think your path would lead to Comptroller potentially?
No.
Does anybody dream when they're a kid?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Be Comptroller?
I don't think that's one of the things people dream about. But they certainly dream about giving, about service and giving back, which is what I'm doing. And I'm too old to serve in the military, so this is my military duty, if you would. That's funny. Sometimes you have to take whatever jobs are offered.
Of course. For those, and I think we should start at kind of the basics here. For those that don't know exactly the job of the Comptroller, what would your responsibilities be?
Well, the Comptroller is an incredibly powerful role, an incredibly relevant role. It doesn't get the glamour and glitz of the other, ticket or the upstate, top of the ticket roles like governor and attorney general. But it's certainly a very important role because you're effectively the money manager. You're the CFO of the state, and it's an elected office, a separately elected office, because the framers of the Constitution in 1847 decided it was important to have that person only report to the taxpayers. Before it used to report to the governor. There was a lot of shady stuff happening. So the people that framed the Constitution of New York decided that it needed to be a separate role, and it really has two primary functions. The first one is the comptroller. The comptroller needs to effectively pay all the bills for the state. So they need to validate all the vouchers, and within that comes the power of the audit. So the ability to ensure that the payments are done correctly, making sure there's no fraud and abuse in the system, and making sure there's no double payments. Kind of the basic accounting and payment format that are required. And the second very important function is you're effectively the manager, the sole trustee of $300 billion of pensioners' money. This is money that belongs to the people that gave their lives to the state, and you're responsible for investing that money and ensuring that you get good returns. And making sure you follow the fiduciary duty that's required of that role.
Sure. And explain that. What would if you're elected comptroller, where would you look to invest? Because that seems like that's a major part and an important part of the job.
Yeah, no, it's an important part of the role. I mean, look, historically, we've done pretty poor. Last year, we got 5.8% return on the fund. We paid out $16 billion in benefits to people that were retirees and pensioners. And the reason it's important to get a good return is for every dollar that you don't make up, you have to pass the hat around and ask taxpayers to make up the difference. And obviously that's a very, very big challenge if you're somebody running a small city and you got to make a decision between a fire truck and paying the pension fund, which
Sure.
you have to. So the returns are really important. Portfolio theory applies here. This is really what I do for a living, investing, and I do mostly venture and public offerings. But you got to apply portfolio theory. So you got to spread the money out, spread the risk out. But at the same time, you really need to be very smart about where you deploy capital from a growth perspective. And following portfolio theory is really important. If you compare our pension fund to other funds like CalPERS, which is the California Pension Fund, it's about a $500 billion fund. A Teachers Union Fund in Canada, the Ontario Teachers Union Fund, the Canadian Pension Fund, they all do something different than our fund, and that is that they have an in-house investment team. Rather than allocate capital to Wall Street like we do here in New York, you hire investors that know what they're doing and allocate capital correctly, and you apply the portfolio theory. And what really happens when you do that is you get better returns. So those guys have about 12% return on average. Just to put it into perspective, the S&P yielded 16% last year.
Okay.
We were at 5.8, so we had dismal performance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I plan to really bring in an in-house investment team, reduce the fees to Wall Street. We paid Wall Street $1.4 billion in fees last year. Wow. I can build a team for pennies on the and,
right.
and get better performance. So that's what we're going to do
Wow.
for the fund.
Why do you think our return was so dismal? Is this something where it gets almost, because I know in other states, maybe in this state, where they start to make decisions based on politics?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's really one of the drivers. If you look at the way the fund has been managed in New York by Tom DiNapoli, one thing they do is they invest. They have these criteria of investing that really are not in high growth areas. You look at green energy, and not to say that you should invest in green energies, but there are things that are better than others. So having a broad mandate like that is difficult. Putting filters like political filters in terms of what countries you can invest in
Right.
and so forth, those are issues. One of the other things that Tom has done with the fund, which I am vehemently against, is he's used DEI policies to allocate capital. If you look at the capital that's been allocated for what I call money managers or third-party managers, about 30% of that has been allocated based on DEI requirements. They don't break down how those have returned, and not to say that there's not good managers in there.
Sure.
But the reality is when you use that kind of filter, you kind of dilute the primary role, which is to get the best possible returns for pensioners.
I mean, if you're investing your own money, we're not talking taxpayers. You wouldn't want to go to your broker and say, "Hey, I want DEI." You'd say, "Give me the most money," right?
The most money. You got to do ethical things, and you got to have a moral
yeah.
compass, of course, in what you do in your decision making. But you can't use politics as a filter. And unfortunately, a lot of these state funds, New York being kind of the leader in that, has started to use political filters to make investments, and you see the byproduct, which is poor returns.
And do you think that maybe speaks to why Thomas DiNapoli's numbers in the recent Standard poll were so poor?
Well, I mean, I find those numbers fascinating. Just an individual that's been in office for 20 years, in public office for longer than that. I mean, I always joke he's been around longer than the internet's been around.
It's true.
Which is factual, yeah. And nobody knows who he is, which is really fascinating. That says a couple of things. One is, by the way, this role is supposed to be a loud role. You're supposed to say no. In budget negotiations, you're supposed to be pounding on the table. When there's fraud and abuse, you should be the one leading, kicking in the door type of thing. This role has not been that for 20 years, and it needs to be more aggressive. It needs to be a watchdog. That's the intent. Tom DiNapoli has been a lapdog for the state, and we're going to change that.
It seems to be, at least to me, from an outsider's perspective, his big thing is you check your name and address, and you might have a check coming from you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the shtick, right?
Right.
I think that's where most people hear his name is just from that one-trick pony a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And and audits that are not really financial audits, they're audits about things that that don't impact your life really.
Right.
So I'm going to change the mindset there. We're going to do real audits. We're going to do forensic audits. We're going to build what I'm calling the fraud strike team, and that's going to be primarily focused on smoking out fraud and abuse in our system. We know that it's there.
Yes.
And if you look at Medicaid alone, we have $110 billion allocated.
And why do we not look at that?
We just don't. We don't spend time on it. The fraud and abuse that's been identified has been primarily by third parties highlighting it, or political individuals saying, or political figures saying, elected officials saying there's something here.
Yeah, right.
It hasn't been a proactive endeavor. We're going to run a completely different proactive endeavor. We're going to hire forensic accountants. We're going to hire people who know how to build these financial prosecution files to hand to prosecutors, and we're going to use big data tools, data analytics, AI to find fraud and abuse. The reality is you don't have to even use these tools. I analyze, and I'm a numbers guy, I'm a scientist by training, so maybe I have a slightly unfair advantage. But, we looked at some of the Medicaid numbers that were released back in January, and just by using basic analysis, I mean, even if you put the data in Claude, it'll throw out anomalous stuff. Like, for example, there is a cluster of home health care payment in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Billions of dollars are being deployed out of Brooklyn. Why is that?
Yeah.
Nobody's looked into that. Why is there 5 agencies that allocate almost 60% of all the payments that are done from the state? I mean, that is a clear beacon, red flag that there's fraud and abuse. And by the way,
that's at the base level.
That was me spending maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes on it. It is ubiquitous, and it hasn't been looked at. We haven't done an aggressive up and down view on this. I don't think it's a priority for the current comptroller. It'll certainly be my priority. I think there's billions of dollars in fraud and abuse that could be brought back to the taxpayers and used the way it's supposed to and intended to be used. And that's going to be a primary focus for us.
Isn't it interesting? I think it tells a lot when someone fights an audit on numbers that big.
Absolutely.
So don't you think it would be probably, to the viewers out there, it'd probably be terrifying if we actually knew how bad those numbers were. When you get in there and you say, here's what we're looking at, I think it'd be unbelievable.
I always compare our Medicaid. Medicaid is a very big, in my opinion, a big concentration of fraud and abuse. Minnesota. Everybody's talking about Minnesota and all this noise. Minnesota's budget of Medicaid is only $19 billion. Ours is $110 billion. So just add a factor of fraud and abuse in our system. And by the way, we have less oversight than probably Minnesota does. Yeah. And I think it's astronomical. And I think when we get to the bottom of it, when we finally smoke this thing out, we're going to be astonished at the amount of abuse and the length of abuse that's occurred here.
And I know, obviously, you've already touched on it a little bit, but I do have this as my note. Overall, we talked about the pensions, but overall, the job that Thomas DiNapoli, if anybody knows who he is, according to the polls, the job that he has done overall.
Well, I mean, I think when you sort of compare performance on the pension fund, I think that's been poor. Yeah. I think when you look at the fraud and abuse, I think that's poor. Another area worth highlighting is, we have this thing called the unclaimed funds. Yeah. That when Tom DiNapoli started, there was about $6 to $7 billion in unclaimed funds, and these are monies that are usually returned to the state when bank accounts are left abandoned or someone dies, doesn't claim property, or even your gift cards. When you buy them, they go back to the state. Yeah. And the state's role is supposed to find the rightful owner. Well, when he started, this fund was about $6 billion worth of unclaimed funds. Today, it's almost $21 billion. And of course, there's no incentive in returning this money because it's slush money for the state.
Right, of course.
Interest-free. So think about it. You have $20 billion you can borrow interest-free. So he hasn't done a good job of returning that capital. On day one, we're going to use, again, data mining tools to find the rightful owner and return that money. But I think, if you were to analyze the role, I think there's been complacency, institutional kind of fatigue. We really need somebody aggressive to root out the fraud and abuse, especially with the size of this budget. It's an astronomical budget,
of course,
and we need real scrutiny.
When you talk about the complacency, do you think that's why he now has Democrat primary challengers?
I think that's part of it. I think think that there's another extreme part of the party. I mean, I think when you look at Tom, he's not crazy left.
Right.
I mean, he's left, but he's not crazy left.
Right.
I think there's an evolution of the party that's crazy left, and I think you're seeing these crazy left people challenge him.
Run for anything.
And
really,
and exactly. And I think, look, what we're trying to bring is to the table something different. It's common sense. It's real oversight. It's the intended role, which is to be a watchdog for the taxpayer, and that's what I intend to be.
But what does it say about the Democrat primary? Because you don't have a primary.
I don't have a primary. I'm happy to say I was unanimously selected
congratulations.
by both the Republican and Conservative Party. I don't know if that means there was nobody else that wanted the job, but I was, and I am thankful for that. I'm proud of that. But
in the Democrat Party, the Working Families Party of all people will not make an endorsement.
Yeah, that just happened today.
Yeah, that's shocking.
Well, it is. It is. I think. I think. Look, I think that I have my opinions about that party.
Of course,
I mean, it's a semi-socialist, I would argue, communist sort of ideology in terms of what they believe in. I like to pick funds. I like to pick fun at that group because I come from socialism. I know what it's like.
Yeah, so
I come from a communist country, and I just find it fascinating and almost unrealistic that somebody would want that ideology in our society, which is the antithesis of that.
Well, they didn't live it. You know,
They
that's the
haven't lived
difference.
it, yeah.
It's this utopian dream that we're seeing. In
It's
their
not
mind,
real,
and
and
it's not real.
it's not worked. I mean, I always like to bring history into this argument. If you look at socialism and communism, what has it done for the world? It's killed 100 million people. When you look at Mao's China, you look at Vietnam, you look what happened in the Soviet Union, even in Cuba, Venezuela. There's no positive example of this ideology. When you compare that to what we have here in America, what's made America the nation that we are, capitalism has lifted 1 billion people out of poverty. It's not perfect, and certainly we can do things better. But when you compare those two ideologies, there's no comparison.
Do you think it's? We've had this discussion on the program before. Do you think it's almost an ego issue where, like look at Mayor Mamdani, that it's never worked before, but I'm the one that can actually do it?
I think that's partly it, but I also think there's just unrealistic. You know, it's utopia. You believe what you read, but you haven't experienced it. You don't have the advantage of experience, I would argue.
Sure.
And I think it's been tried many times before, and it's never really worked. And it's sad that it's getting some traction here in New York, and we got to put an end to it. We have to.
Well, this kind of ties in with my next question. How do we stop the mass exodus? Because when you see people that are Democrats, Socialists of America pushing these kind of ideas, it's causing businesses to leave in droves. It's causing people to leave in droves. I mean, I know the Comptroller's office has a lot on their plate, but how would you help or hope to stop that exodus?
Well, I mean, I think if you look at what the current politicians are doing, and I blame everybody across the spectrum here because it's happening at the state level, it's happening at the city level, like New York. I mean, making videos in front of somebody who employs that many people in the city has built a great company. And by the way, he did this in the dorms. I mean, this guy didn't. It's not like he inherited the wealth he has. He's built it through hard work and risk. And to do things like that, to drive companies like Apollo, like Elliott Capital, now the Citadel. You're driving out the people that employ and pay the majority of the taxes in the state.
Right.
And by the way, it's not like we're spending less money, we're spending more money. So we're driving the people that pay the taxes out, and we're spending more money. This is a trajectory that's not a good trajectory.
It's sustainable.
It's a fiscal crisis at the making, in my humble opinion.
And speaking of a fiscal crisis, let's talk about the budget.
Oh my gosh.
So obviously there's a lot of moving pieces right now. Hochul's saying is in, but we don't have to get through all of that.
Yeah.
But just the process itself, where do you see this, really the mess that we're in Albany?
Well, this is a clown show. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it, but first of all, we have the mayor of New York City driving a lot of the agenda and really being in control. Yeah. The governor doing whatever Mamdani wants in the city. You have a ballooning budget. You have a situation where the bond rating agencies are downgrading potentially the bonds in the city. And by the way, that's where it starts. Once they start there, they're going to move to the state. I mean, I think you have an anomalous situation. You have one person announcing the budget's complete, the other one saying no, it's not. Right. You have people protesting Kathy who are supposedly ideologically aligned. I mean, it's a total mess.
It's a mess.
And it's not like we're reducing the budget. The numbers are now 268, $8 billion more. Yeah. $8 billion more than projected. And you're driving the tax base out. Your bond rating is decreasing. I mean, this is if you were to make a catastrophe on the financial crisis of a state, this is how you make the movie.
$250 billion.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It's really unbelievable. What does it say about the state when you have three people in the same room, in the same party, and they still can't come together and make this decision? And by the way, the whole argument about policy in the budget, we could get to that, but doesn't that say a lot about what the mess we're dealing with?
There are no leaders here.
No.
You need an adult in the room. This is complete. People trying to drive their own personal agenda with not having the interests of the taxpayer in mind.
Exactly.
And I think that is. I hope the voters are waking up to this because this is not sustainable.
I'm going to take a short break. Can you stay with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. We're broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. In that studio, Joseph Hernandez, running for New York State Comptroller. Before we move on, kind of just do a recap. Tell us a little bit about this potential lawsuit, as we talked earlier about Governor Hochul. Yeah.
Well, look, I think when you look at the history of this office, again, about in 1847 or so, the the people who drafted the Constitution realized that there was a disconnect between, fiscal oversight, the executive and the legislative function of the state, and they realized that we needed a third-party overseer, basically somebody that had their eyes on the money, because there's a lot of money flowing through these budgets. And so they created the office of the Comptroller as a separately elected office. And in that, if you look at the Constitution is very clear. Article 5, Section 1 says that all vouchers need to be approved by the Comptroller. All vouchers. Yeah. That means every invoice, every contract, everything that requires a payment. Okay. And historically, they have adjusted those numbers through legislation. Right now, it's at 50,000. I think it's unconstitutional. The Constitution is very clear. It says all. It doesn't say 50. Right. It doesn't say 100. It doesn't say $50. It says all. So I think that's been an issue. I think in this last budget proposal that Kathy Hochul has put forth, she's attempted to change that further. So she's moving that threshold to 300,000, which is significant, not from a numerical perspective, because it's really a 6x fold from where it is today. But what it does allow is about $3 billion of contracts to flow through without any oversight. Wow. So you think about things like grants to not-for-profits. Sure. When you think about consultant contracts, these things won't require any oversight if this passes. So I have been very clear with the governor and those that are enabling her to put this in the budget. And that includes Tom DiNapoli, that includes the budget director, Washington, and the other folks in the legislative branch of government. And I have made it very clear that if that passes in the budget, I will sue them the next day. I've even shared with them the lawsuit so they can read it and be prepared for what they're about to be served with. But I'm dead serious. I think this is it's an attack on the taxpayer. It is an insult to logic and common sense, and I'm not going to put up with it. I want to give Tom DiNapoli credit here because he agrees with me. However, he's not saying anything. He's not jumping on the table. He's not pounding pounding on the desk. I'm going to pound on the desk and I'm going to sue them, and we're going to reverse this.
Has DiNapoli ever really been a part of the budget process? You never hear his name thrown around at all.
Well, it's supposed to be part of the role as well. Right, you're supposed to be involved. You're supposed to be analyzing how these numbers really intersect and what the trajectory looks like from a revenue perspective. I haven't seen him. You don't hear his name as part of the budget process.
He's not a part of the three people in the room.
Yeah, no. I guarantee you that if I'm elected, I'm forcing myself into that room. There's no question about it.
Perfect. So before we go, what is your vision for the Comptroller's office? So after Election Day, you get sworn in January. What would your Comptroller's office look like?
Well, look, we're going to focus on three main areas, and they're all sort of the overarching theme of it is affordability and making sure that we protect the taxpayer. The first thing we're going to do is, again, we're going to build an in-house investment team. We're going to stop paying these crazy fees to Wall Street. We're going to get our returns better than 5.8. We're going to shoot for what our peer funds that have their own in-house investment teams do, north of 10%. That should be pretty significant because every 1 percentage point is about $3 billion back to the coffer. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to really rout out this fraud and abuse. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to build this fraud strike team. We're going to house 40 people almost immediately. We're going to really move quickly on this and smoke out this fraud and abuse and put people in prison. We got to enforce the law that exists in the books, and we cannot put up with people stealing from the hardworking taxpayers of the state. So we're going to execute that plan very, very fast. And then the third thing we're going to do is we're going to invest in New York. So I've put together a plan that we call the Empire Opportunity Fund. We're setting aside $10 billion from the pension fund with really the primary focus of ensuring significant returns for our pensioners, but also investing in New York. And we're going to put money to work here. We're going to bring companies here. I mean, you read the story about Corning leaving or investing in North Carolina.
But they're going to North Carolina, Texas.
Yeah. I mean, why don't those jobs should be here?
$3.2 billion, right?
It's insanity. Yeah. 3,000 jobs. I mean, we could use those 3,000 jobs. And, we've created a climate that's not business friendly. We got to change that. Mm-hmm. The Comptroller role has only a limited role there. But our goal is to, invest $10 billion in the next generation of companies that are in artificial intelligence, advanced manufacturing, robotics, energy, aviation, defense. These are all the growth sectors of the future. We're going to bring companies here as equity investors. Yeah. So this is not a grant. We're not giving money away. Right. We're going to make investments in these companies. We're going to diligence them like you would a venture capitalist. Bring them here, invest in them, create the next tax base, and then create the next generation of jobs for our kids so they don't have to leave these great communities. Right. And so we have to work hard to do that, especially in the northern parts of the states and the western parts of the states that have been neglected for 20, 30 years. And the other thing that we forget about is the pension fund. Look, we invest $5 billion in NVIDIA.
Okay. Yeah.
The same company that just did this, right?
The money corner. Yeah.
If I'm Comptroller, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to call the CEO of NVIDIA and say, look, if we invest $5 billion in you, why aren't you investing in our people?
Exactly.
And that's a phone call I'm going to make to all CEOs of these big corporations that we have significant positions in. Google is one, Microsoft. I mean, these are all companies that we have massive investments in, and you should have a say as an investor. And I'm going to have a say, I promise you that.
And don't you think just having the message, because I think going back again to the Siena poll, or when we talk about him being involved in the budget, there is just no real clear message coming from the Napoli's office. It's quiet, where you're coming out and saying, this is what my plan is. What's his plan?
I mean, listen, as I said, maybe after 20 years you get tired of the role and you forget what you need to do and what the role is intended to be. You haven't been really seriously challenged, and I think this is the year for that on both on the Democratic side and on the Republican side. Yeah. I feel like, when I talk to people across the state, my message is common sense. Yeah. It's logical. Everybody wants the things that I'm articulating here, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. And that's why, as I travel through the state, the momentum and support for me increases significantly. And we're going to continue to work hard to get the support of everybody, because I think, look, the Comptroller role is supposed to represent everybody, and that's what I intend to do.
When you mention support, how can we help? Just before we go, how can we help, or how can we find out more?
Look, I'm just trying to get the message across to the extent you can tell your friends and colleagues. This particular race is, in my opinion, a turning point for New York. I think we need new leadership in Albany on the governor's role, on the attorney general's role, on the comptroller's role. So we need everybody to get out there and really support change in Albany, because we need it. Again, I'm trying to get my message out. The best way to do that is to visit my website, hernandezforny.com. We're trying to get the matching funds. So any
Are you having the same hiccup?
What's that?
Are you having the same hiccup as Blakeman?
No, we haven't been challenged. Okay. Not yet. But these Democrats, they bring all kinds of things to the party. Look, we're trying to make the match, and anything helps. $5, $10, $15, whatever you can donate. This is I always like to be dramatic about it, because it is a dramatic situation. This is our Normandy. This is our D-Day. Yeah. If we don't win this battle, New York is in a trajectory that we're not going to recognize New York 5 years from now. Oh. I think fiscally, we're going to have fiscal crisis. The exodus of companies and people are going to continue. And this is going to be a very, very sad chapter for New York.
I couldn't agree more. Well, first of all, let me say best of luck.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for giving us so much time, and I hope we can do this again when you're Comptroller.
Such a pleasure. I look forward to it. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. And I want to thank Joseph Hernandez, candidate for New York State Comptroller, for being our guest. We're going to read some quick viewer comments here, and then we've got to take another short break, because as you can imagine, running a little bit late. We will be talking with former Congressman, current Assemblyman, Joe Sempolinski in the next hour. All right, viewer comments. The British election was a blow to the European Union. Trump is making Great Britain. Oh, that's a tough one to say. Trump is making Great Britain great again. Thank you very much to that viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. My humble self at age 65 could totally rock the physical fitness test for someone my age. However, it would probably catch up to me a couple days later and I would be sore for a week. I should probably ease into it for a couple of weeks. Well, hey, good for you. That's why I read the president's physical fitness. We've had one that would say clear failure, Mark said, and then we had one that could kill it. I appreciate that. All right, comment from a different viewer. After listening to Joseph Hernandez, it's clear that there is something even more fishy in New York State than I had previously imagined. Fraud and corruption appears to be rampant. Thank you very much. Mark writes in, it seems like Mr. Hernandez would get rid of a lot of fraud and money mismanagement in New York State. As a Republican, he has my vote. Thank you, Mark. And finally, don't know or I didn't know, excuse me, the state played the stock market or otherwise invested taxpayer money in the markets. Talk about insider trading. What's for the pensions? So we appreciate that. And we appreciate Joseph Hernandez for being on the program. If you are just joining us before we take a break, the big news coming out yesterday, it has been announced that the 2027 NASCAR race weekend, next year's race will be in September. So maybe NASCAR got the hint as they saw the same photos you and I have been seeing of people stuck in the mud and not being able to camp and kind of the washout. So are you going? Your thoughts on that? Your thoughts? We can continue to talk about Corning Inc. From that announcement yesterday where they're getting all that huge investment from Nevada, or NVIDIA, however you say it, NVIDIA. We actually talked about it there with Mr. Hernandez, and yet none of the jobs or factories coming here, but going to North Carolina and Texas. So we can continue to talk about that. But we got to take a break, and then we're going to wrap up hour number 1 and prepare for Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. So stay with us. In Horseheads, contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back wrapping up hour number 1 as we broadcast live from the Hesselson's studio. This viewer writes in, we need Doge here in New York State. Sure, it seems that. Sounds like Mr. Hernandez is the right man for the job. Did you see, we talked yesterday quickly about Barack Obama and Stephen Colbert and their sit-down interview because Colbert's having the longest final episodes ever. Well, Senator John Kennedy unloaded on best buds, Barack Obama and Stephen Colbert. Oh, yeah, there's the congressman, former congressman, currently assemblyman. He said they're best buds and they should get a motel together. We've got other updates, but Joseph Hernandez, again, thank you, candidate for New York State Comptroller. And coming up here after this short break, we're going to hear from Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. Again, the big news this morning, next year's NASCAR race will be moved till September. It will be a part of the Cup Series champion as part of the chase. So that is the major news coming out yesterday. Also, I wanted to highlight a couple of upcoming events since we have just 1 minute here before we join with Joe. Corning Community College is holding Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon at their Digital Dome Theater, coming today from 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. On the 15th, 8 p.m., May 22nd, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., and the 29th at 8 p.m. All right, let's take that break. Joe's going to join us in just a moment. We'll be right back with hour number 2. And we welcome you to hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, and in that studio, former Congressman, current Assemblyman, the chair of the Steuben County Republican Committee, Joe Sempolinski. Hey, Joe.
And for the record, I am not here to announce a fake budget deal.
I was hoping.
Like, I did not totally make up that we had a budget, and then I'm not going to hold a press conference and an announcement saying that. I would never do something that incompetent.
Incompetent. Can you imagine? I mean, that takes a lot of guts.
I mean, this is not the first time.
No.
So last year, she basically did the same thing, and she said, "Oh, it's done," and it was a full week before we had language to vote on. And it's, as a state legislator, it's infuriating because as soon as the governor says, "Oh, there's a budget deal," people start calling your office. Right. Superintendents of schools want to know how much money they're getting.
Bruce Blakeman released a statement.
Yeah, we want to know, what policies in the budget. People have. I'm going to be meeting with a bunch of county legislators. My next event after this, and I'm sure they were thinking when it was scheduled that it was going to be talking about the budget. Now, this year was a little different because it had happened last year. The leadership in the legislature was not having any of it. So I'm sitting in the chamber. This is yesterday morning, and the speaker comes storming through the chamber and out the other side. I'm like, oh, he doesn't look happy, and basically just blows up this entire narrative that there was a budget deal because he and the majority leader of the Senate are the ones presumably she was negotiating with. Right. Our floor leader referred to it as one hand clapping, and then comes storming back through. It was an interesting morning, and Mr. Palmisano, who's our ranker on Ways and Means.
Yeah, I played the clip this morning.
Yeah, he asks Mr. Pretlow, is there a deal? And Pretlow's like, no. Yeah, there is one thing, one feeling, one truth that unifies everybody in Albany, whether you're left, right, center, radical, centrist, whatever. Every position, every person, we all agree, all of us, Kathy Hochul has absolutely no idea what she's doing.
Right. I mean, when you literally have a Democrat Assembly member, Emily Gallagher, saying that
who's
we don't,
one of the most radically
you
leftist.
can tell by her language, we don't want a dictatorship, and that's really what this is becoming with the governor making the budget last the entire legislative session.
Yeah.
That's some pretty wild language.
Yeah, I think she's lost a lot of credibility. I mean, she held a 15-minute, 20-minute press conference, whatever it was, laying all this out, and then immediately it gets changed. So, for instance, I got a interview request from Channel 4 in Buffalo, and originally the interview request is, they wanted to go. The reporter thought there was a deal.
Of course.
So he wanted to go over the details, especially on the car insurance stuff. And I tell my chief of staff, I'm going to do the interview, but I'm just going to tell him, there's nothing there. And then over the course of, we didn't do the interview until 1 o'clock. And over the course of the day, it became clear,
I don't need an interview.
Well, no, we did it.
Okay.
But the interview was about what happened this morning, not about car insurance.
Well, going kind of back to what we were saying, and I mentioned Blakeman, you were talking about the year before, but Blakeman released a statement. I saw Empire Report, and I can't blame him. Empire Report, that was the headline.
Yeah.
So I thought it was all over but the shouting.
Yeah.
And then New York Post, I think it was the first one that said, there's no deal.
There's right, yeah.
And then Empire Report kind of has to, and I don't blame them, but when you start making the people that love you, the media, if you start making them mad because they just wrote a whole article and they have to start back, that's not a good place to be.
The mainstream media is not happy because they just got, messed with.
Yeah.
Right.
They look kind of foolish.
They got used, right?
A great way of putting it.
They got used to put out this narrative, and the goal was to sort of shove it across the line. And she made everybody angry last year, but it sort of semi-worked. It took a week.
Yeah.
But again, I was, perplexed, and I was frustrated, I was angry because again I got all these people calling me asking for details on the budget, asking for information that simply does not exist.
Right.
The budget is a series of laws. There are 10 budget bills. You pass 10 laws to create a budget, and they're like any other laws. They get introduced, you look at them, see what's in them, you debate them on the floor, you have a vote. You can vote yes, you can vote no. Some people vote yes on some of them, some people vote no on some of them. Last year I voted no on all of them. But you do it like any other law. And until I see the law, I can't tell you what's in the law.
Right.
You have to go look at the text of the words, and they didn't exist, and they don't exist now.
Right.
And I don't know when they're going to exist.
And isn't it frustrating for you? Like you said, you've got constituents, you've got people, especially with the school budget.
Schools, especially,
they've got to be
schools have the most urgent issue. Yeah.
So when you have Democrats, Republicans, the media, everybody mad at you, Hochul's not in a very healthy place at this moment.
No, I mean,
not from a bargaining standpoint either.
I think that is a major point. Her two bargaining partners now feel they've gotten burned again. They feel she is not negotiating in good faith again.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen over the weekend. The speaker said that he's no longer willing to negotiate anything on policy until they figure out the budget numbers, and that's one of the things. The governor is trying to influence policy, right? And this is where she feels she has leverage. And the legislature doesn't want to move on policy. And again, she's a little bit more, it's weird to say it, she's slightly more moderate on policy than them. But they haven't handled any of the money side of it. So the speaker said he's no longer willing to do it in that order. He wants to go to money first.
Right.
I don't know if the governor's willing to do that. Does she start putting things into the extenders and trying to force votes on particular policy issues? Otherwise the government shuts down? I don't know. So this could go, all right, everybody goes home for Mother's Day, everybody chills out, and we sort this out over the next week.
Watkins Glen.
Right, there you go. Hey, Watkins Glen. Everybody loves Watkins Glen, and exciting. You said they're going to be a playoff chase race next year.
September.
So that could be what happens. That's sort of what happened last year. Or people could be digging their heels in, and we have some sort of confrontation between the legislative branch and the executive branch that happens next week. We are not in session. I'm obviously in the hot tub.
Right, the Hesselson's hot tub.
On the Market Street. I am physically, this is real. It's not
because when I saw the announcement,
I'm not in Albany.
I was going to text you and make sure that we were still on.
My wife did.
Yeah.
My wife saw the announcement. She goes, "Are you coming home tonight?" Because it was the last day scheduled of session was yesterday. And I texted you back, I think so,
I don't know,
but I don't know, and because there was speculation. Well, then if it's really a deal, do we do it over the weekend and get it just stay in session, do it over the weekend, get it done. And so there was a lot of people, I think, having those texts of like, well, what does this mean? When are we voting? When do we have bills? And it became pretty clear pretty quickly that we didn't have legislation. So even if there was a deal, we were still going to have to do another extender, which we did Thursday morning. We'll probably have to do another one Monday morning. And
I love it because I get clips every time from
Phil.
It's
It's
great.
the Phil show. Phil's done 10 extenders at this point.
I know.
Yeah, so it's he's got a lot of attention as our new Ways and Means ranker, but we'll have to do at least an 11th one, I would presume, unless something really bizarre happens over the weekend. But it is not a good way to run a government. Let's just put it that way.
No, and it's just overall embarrassing.
It's extraordinarily embarrassing. I mean, if I had a press conference that said a bunch of baloney that was just made up in front of the whole world, and then immediately the people that I said I was working with told the whole world that I had no idea what I was talking about, I'd be a little embarrassed.
And the thing that it doesn't make me think that someone's going to get fired. It's not some of her staffers saying you got to do this way. I think Hochul is so kind of full of herself in a way, and she thinks she's at a higher level than she is, that she does something like this, and I think it's her choice.
I would presume something like this came from the top.
Yeah, me too.
And I heard a rumor that she was going to do it Wednesday. Like this had been in the works over the course of the week.
This was her big tactic.
Like she wanted to pull the trigger on this. Yeah. And according to the speaker, what the speaker told her the night before is he was comfortable. This is, you can go pull up with Speaker Hasty. Not a guy I agree with on a lot.
He was mad.
But he was rightfully mad.
Yeah.
Policy aside, he was rightfully angry. And what he said was he had told her the night before that he was comfortable with her saying they were close. That's what he said to his negotiating partner, that you can tell the world that we're close because it's close. And that's not what she did. She didn't say close. And then by the way, she did this whole thing about we did it, I think was the way she phrased it. It's done. And then when it blew up, her press team was trying to backtrack it, saying, "Oh no, she never. She said.
You misunderstood what she said.
It was just a general thing that they were close or whatever." And they were trying to undo it in real time.
Too late.
And no one bought it.
No.
It was a fiasco.
And it was one of those weird news stories, and extra weird, where when I'm checking updates and I just think it's all over.
Yeah.
Like I said, and then you go, wait, the New York Post is saying it's not over and nowhere near over.
Right.
It's another embarrassment of Hochul, who just thinks she is so good at this.
Yeah, she is not.
No.
She's not good at
All right,
this.
Let's read.
By that I mean her job.
Her job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a reason. I know I've said a million times to you and on the show. There's a reason why Cuomo picked her.
Yeah.
It was to not be governor.
Right. It was
you don't want someone
that
to
wouldn't outshine her, that could go and run around the state and do press conferences and cut ribbons and what's not. And there's nothing wrong with that.
But she wants to be a power broker so bad. You see it in the and you ever notice when there's the talking points that Democrats use, she's always like 3 days later using it.
Yeah. She is not at that level.
All right, let's go to some viewer comments. How's that sound, Joe?
Absolutely.
Good morning, Frank.
Maybe Hochul's watching.
Oh, no, I hope not. She'll be mad. Yeah. Good morning, Frank. Thank you for giving us a snapshot of another candidate. It was interesting to hear from Mr. Hernandez.
Oh, you had Hernandez.
Yeah, and they to this point, and I get it, but I don't agree with what you're saying here about Hernandez, but they all sound good until they somehow get amnesia after they're elected.
No.
This is a different example, though, because you can tell here's a guy who's in no way, shape, or form doing it to get Hernandez's name out there. He's doing it because he sees the real fraud and corruption.
Yeah, I like him, and he's got an interesting background for a politician. Sort of came up from nothing and been a successful businessman.
He was a refugee from Cuba.
Yeah, and
lived through socialism.
I first met him when he first started poking around about running. So, I don't know, January, February, something. Yeah. He came out to Olean, where I have my office in my district, and we got lunch. And I'd never met him before, but he got lunch with myself and a few other party officials, and I had a wonderful time. I talked to him and learned about him, and he's been a good candidate, and I certainly hope that he is the next comptroller of the state of New York, and I'll be voting for him. And
real nice guy.
Super nice guy, and comes again from a very interesting background as far as appreciating what the United States is all about and the freedoms and opportunities that come with being an American.
And it's always impressive when someone running for comptroller can make the interview interesting.
Listen, Comptroller is important.
I know.
They're the sole trustee of the pension fund.
He told us. Hey, we just had a 45-minute interview.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
Audit powers is very important. The Comptroller is.
It is
like
actually,
people do not realize how important it is.
Was it Spitzer who wanted to end up running for that? But I think at the city level.
Oh, city controller. He did run for city.
Did he end up running? Because remember that there is a lot of power there, and it's you probably saw the Santa poll where no one even knows who Tom DiNapoli is.
Right, he's been doing it for 100 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, comments. Good morning. Always great to listen to Joe. And I assume that's you and not Hernandez.
Well, either one.
Either one. Yeah. Great to hear Joe, another person writes. This one went more specific. Good morning, Joe Sempolinski. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give that 3 to Joe Hernandez.
Oh, yeah. The first ones were Hernandez. So, okay.
Mark writes in, we need Hochul out there. We need Hochul out of there. She has no clue that what New York wants or needs. We need Bruce Blakeman. Get rid of New York fraud.
I was with Mr. Blakeman twice this week in Albany. He came up and he spoke at the.
I was hoping you were saying at the White House.
That's the one place I wasn't with him.
Okay.
So his schedule this week was Monday. He was in Albany, speaking to the state women Republican statewide dinner, where I was there and I got to, sit right in the front row and listen to his remarks. He did a very good job. Then he went to meet with the president. And then he was back in Albany. He did a day with the state legislature. That's great. He did a behind the closed doors meeting with the Republican Assembly members and senators, which led to a press conference. And then we had a nice evening reception with him, sort of to everybody can get to know him a little bit. And so yes, I was with Mr. Blakeman, I guess technically 3 times over 2 days, with him doing a trip to see the president in the middle. And
well, he was a big hit on the show, and you guys were too when you all.
Yeah, it went great. And I thanked him when I talked to him on Wednesday night. I thanked him for coming to Corning, and I told him I thought it went very well, and he told me he agreed, and so I'm enthusiastically supporting Mr. Blakeman to defeat Kathy Hochul in November.
Surprise, surprise. All right, we've got breaking news, folks.
That's a dog bites man story, not a man bites dog story.
Exactly. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, something than Joe Sempolinski. Joe, we got a couple comments here. Can Republicans sue Hochul for misuse of tax dollars and violating her sworn oath to represent New York State residents? She has illegally thumbed her nose at the Supreme Court, every New York citizen, and our Constitution. She needs to be held responsible.
Well, I mean, there is... you can sue for a lot of different things, and the way that you handle a governor that misbehaves is sort of the same as you handle a president that misbehaves. The most recent example of that would be Governor Cuomo, who was on the verge of being removed from office before he resigned. So. Yeah.
Some other comments here. New Yorkers get what they deserve. They will still vote for her no matter how bad. Oh, hopefully
I hope that the viewer in this case is incorrect.
Okay. Comment from a different viewer. Good to know a positive testimony from 2 of my favorites, meaning you, I'm assuming, and Go Hernandez.
All right, so Hernandez. Hey, go vote for Mr. Please vote for Mr. Hernandez.
There you go. Jack writes in, what are the exact parts of the budget that are causing such indecision? Perhaps there's a way to single out those issues and pass the ones that are no-brainers. We need to see some progress. Well, the problem with the no-brainers is they seem like it, like changing the climate.
Yes.
But they're not no-brainers when you're talking about one-party rule Albany.
Right. Yeah. So this touches on a bigger point. So one of the things that is a little better in Albany than in Washington is most of the bills we do are single subject bills. Mm-hmm. We'll do maybe 1,000 bills in a year. And most of them are a page, 2-page, 5-page, right. 10-page. It's not something you could digest pretty quickly. You understand pretty quickly from the title. People... I'm sure your viewers get very frustrated with things that are not single subject legislation in Washington, which is sort of a standard practice. We don't do as much of that in Albany, except for the budget.
The biggest.
Except for the one big thing we do. So we'll do, 900 plus single subject bills on very minute things like reauthorizing which fish are regulated by the DEC as a separate law for each one. So doing single subject means you do a lot of different bills. Sure. But the budget is the one place where it's not. So the governor, through the way we have our budget process set up, has enormous influence and enormous power, dramatically more so than the president does in the federal budget process. And so then she feels if she has a policy position that perhaps might not pass the legislature on its own, she puts it in the budget as that's where she has the most leverage. And so because of that, she wants to cram things in the budget. And what is, a little complicated is because now we're not dealing with a single subject bill. You got a lot of different policy things, some of which I agree with the governor more than the legislature. For instance, the energy stuff.
Right,
she's
exactly.
not good, but she's slightly less bad
Right.
than the legislature.
But doesn't she always, at the last minute, end up throwing in a couple other things?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like when they get close, and then what was it last year? There was something out of and nothing came from it, but it was the mask ban.
Yeah,
Remember,
yeah.
she just kind of threw that out for people to go.
Yes.
What are we doing?
And there she talked about that might being in the deal this year.
Yeah, but that was against ICE. She's not doing it for the right reason. She
Yes,
wants ICE not to have.
Correct.
Never mind the anti-Semitic protesters having in
Yes.
New York City.
Yes.
So
this is an
whatever.
ICE
If
thing.
it-
Yes, right. So that's correct. It's an ICE thing. But yes, that's how she negotiates. Is she gets close to a deal and then throws something else in, and it drives, as we saw yesterday.
Yeah, some people crazy.
It drives the other side of the negotiation absolutely nuts. Yeah. So it's an interesting position where on policy, the governor is slightly less awful than the legislative majorities. Whether you're talking about SECRA, whether you're talking about energy, whatever. But from an institutional standpoint, how she is sort of abusing her position vis-a-vis the legislature.
Right.
Speaker had a point yesterday, and the speaker, stood up for the legislature in addition to standing up for his, the Democrats in the legislature. He was also sort of standing up for the institution. So you have a position where a bunch of radical Democrats are debating other radical Democrats about how radical are they going to be.
Right.
And on certain policies, the governor is slightly less radical. So I hope that the policies are closer to my policies and the governor is slightly closer. But as far as the institution is concerned, it's very bad what the governor is doing and how she's negotiating. And as far as just raw competence is concerned,
right.
The governor is not competent, period.
End of story.
Yeah.
Did you see, speaking of ICE, that Tom Homan, that guy's a superstar. He was on.
He's another one that's come to talk to the state legislature. He came last year.
That
to
was
talk
so great because wasn't it Mom Donnie who was
that
protesting?
was before Mom Donnie was Mom Donnie.
Yeah.
He was like,
and he's screaming at he's just
he
eating an apple.
I happened to have another meeting and I walked out just like 30 seconds or a minute ahead of that, and I just missed that.
Yeah, that's funny. But he said, because Governor Hochul said that we're not asking for more ICE agents to crack down on illegal immigrants, and his response was, well, Governor Hochul, I'm not asking either.
Right, yeah.
I mean, and he's saying, basically, if ICE can't work with the local officials and things like that, he said she wants to end the partnership we currently have, which means now we've got to send a whole team to look for a criminal that we could arrest in the safety and security of a jail, which is safer for the officers, safer for the aliens, certainly safer for the communities. So this is an example. And actually, it was kind of, I think it was James Carville, of all people, who said that the Democrats have now kind of started back with the defund the police, but now it's abolish ICE.
Which makes no sense. If you have federal law, it needs to be enforced. And they literally just want to get rid of the agency that enforces those laws. That just does not make sense under any sort of civilized form of government.
No.
So what we have, under our Constitution, the Supreme Court has ruled, you cannot force a lower jurisdiction, a local jurisdiction, to aid in enforcing federal law. However, if they want to do it, if it's voluntary, and that's what these agreements are, they are voluntary. And we have several of them in my district where the local jurisdiction says, yes, we would like to help because it's going to be good for our community.
Exactly.
And so you have, in this case, again, you have the federal government is not forcing these jurisdictions to do anything. Local jurisdictions are stepping up and volunteering and say, we want to help you.
Yeah.
And
as they should.
Homan is right in his statement where if the local guys are helping, you're going to have a safer, more orderly, more effective, more efficient enforcement of the law.
For everybody.
Because the local folks know their communities. Mm-hmm. They know how to do this in a way where there's not going to be some tragic accident. There's not going to be some sort of thing that gets blown out of control. You get the guy that the law needs to be enforced vis-a-vis, and you deal with it. So it is in the interest of the public to have local folks, again, voluntarily be involved in this law enforcement endeavor. And the governor wants to ban that, wants to make it illegal for local folks to help. So the role of the President of the United States, the first thing it says in Article 2 of the Constitution is his job is to see that the laws are faithfully enforced. That's the whole reason we have a president, that the office exists. And everyone else in the executive branch is there to help the president do that one job. Article 2, United States Constitution. Mr. Homan has a job to see that the laws are faithfully enforced, whether Kathy Hochul likes it or not.
And to his point.
And if you don't like what the law is, then talk to your congressman, talk to your senator, and they are the ones that write the law and could change the law. But insofar as the law exists, the law needs to be enforced, whether our governor likes it or not.
Perfect. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. Joe, there's so much to cover. I think we had a comment, though, that I wanted. A couple comments. Good morning, Frank and Joe. Steve here. Hi, Steve. Has there been any federal funding withheld from New York State because of the sanctuary status? I know there was withheld because Congressman Langworthy's been very upset because you had the cutting back of funding for, what was it, for our roads because of the CDL licenses?
Yeah, because
we're just giving like licenses.
They don't even have all the information.
No, it literally said no name given.
Yeah, right, which makes no sense. I mean, anybody else, you got to go through a whole process to get a CDL.
Yep.
So again, the law should be enforced. If somebody can't produce the documentation to prove they're eligible to have a particular licensure, that they should get that licensure.
Seems pretty easy.
And the whole concept of sanctuary jurisdiction to me is absurd. You know, if you have a federal law, and I said it in the last segment, if you have federal law, if you don't like that federal law, run for Congress or support a candidate of your choice that holds your position on that policy issue. But if the law is the law needs to be enforced. And the idea that just in a particular jurisdiction, we're not going to have that is just simply makes absolutely no sense as far as being a society based on the rule of law. So I know Mr. Blakeman has said publicly that he does not support the state's sanctuary status. And certainly a lot of that has been done by executive order, and a new governor could make dramatic changes very quickly, regardless of the makeup of the state legislature.
Did you see this headline? And I had a viewer send it in as well. Blue states have bled $2 trillion in wealth to red states in the last decade.
That's right. Well,
and New York leads the way.
Yeah, we are number one on that list. And you have people saying enough is enough, more and more every day, and moving down south, moving to other jurisdictions. And I find it tragic. You know, this is a wonderful place to live in the southern tier. And stupid decisions in Albany have put people in a place where they have to, and they make the decision that they feel for what's best for their family, that they have to go live somewhere else. And I know a lot of these people would love to stay where they grew up, or stay where they've built a life, or stay where their family is, and they feel they have to go to Florida or Tennessee or Texas or wherever. And you know, the proof is in the pudding. You know, Kathy Hochul and my Democrat colleagues in the legislature can, you know, talk as much as they want to talk about us being the Empire State and how great we are, or whatever. But people are voting with their feet.
Yes.
And
then you've got more policies coming out, like the second home tax, potentially. But then you got Zohran Mamdani, of course, with that video. I mean, that was wild. 1-2 sucker punch there. Not sucker punch. We all saw it coming. But with the Citadel, and I can't remember what the other company was.
Yeah, he stands in front of the guy's house.
Yeah.
What do you expect the guy to do?
Yeah.
Why would he invest in that city?
Exactly.
When that's the mayor, you know.
And those are jobs, potential jobs. I mean, let's face it. I mean, even locally, the big talk yesterday was
Corning.
Corning got all that, $3.2 billion investment, and the factories are going to Texas and North Carolina.
3,000 jobs is what I saw in these other states. And, you know, that is.
And no one blames them. No one's coming out and going, why would Corning do that? Because we know what the New York business climate is like.
Right. I would love for Corning to make that investment in the southern tier.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
But the state has put them in a position where that is not what's in the best interest of their business. And so I'm disappointed, but I understand it.
Yeah.
And the blame, if I was to speak to the executives at Corning, I would ask them to make those investments here. But the blame lies not at Corning Inc. HQ.
No.
The blame lies at the feet of Governor Hochul and the Democrat majorities in the state legislature, who continually make decisions that make New York State a less competitive place to do business than the other 49 states.
Little Obama thing.
There are 50 states in the United States. The other 49 states in the United States.
But, and this is kind of a stretch, but not really. If you're a major business, you've just got a $3.2 billion investment, and you look at what Governor Hochul did to the fossil fuel industry, where she says, you know what, you did everything right, you followed every red tape thing that we asked you to do, but now we don't like your product. So we're going to fine you, what was it, like $70 billion? Retroactively. Grandfather in this thing, which isn't right.
To me, it's completely unconstitutional.
100%. Yeah. So what if 10 years down the line, fiber optics becomes unfashionable? I don't think it will. But, I mean, you got to keep things like that in the back of your head.
That's what I said. When I said to the gentleman who was the acting D.C. commissioner at the time, this was last year's budget process, why would anyone do business with the state of New York when this is your policy that down the road, you can follow every rule and every law, and down the road, we're just going to take all your money, and you didn't break any law at the time. If you want to change the law going forward, that's fine. Ex post facto law, by definition, is tyrannical.
Yes.
Period.
And think about the rules and regulations the fossil fuel industry jumped through. It's not as if it was a wild, wild west.
Right.
Go deal with New York. They were going through a lot of red tape. They did it all, and then it's too bad.
There's just I don't understand why anyone would make major investments if that's how we're going to regulate and legislate.
Sadly. We're going to move along from the state, because we always ask you about federal stuff and just the world in general. I was going to ask you about the Met Gala. Those type of things, but before that,
waste of time.
I know we didn't bring it up. That's the first time I brought it up on the show.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you go?
No, that wasn't.
For the record, I have never been and will never go to the Met Gala.
Okay, good to know. Hey, you never know. Never say never. Isn't that what everybody says when they ask if you're going to run for president? Never say never. Isn't that what Kamala said? But your prediction: how long before we get a budget, do you think?
So, I think on your show, I said May 22nd.
I think that's what it was.
That is what, because you asked me that question when I was with my wonderful colleagues, Senator Tom O'Mara and Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, and I think I said 22nd. I'm going to stick with that.
Not yet.
But I would say later dates are now on the table.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because of what happened yesterday, but I'm going to stick with my original prediction.
I would say
22.
Before yesterday, I would have thought that we were getting closer, not because of what Hochul said, but it did seem like you saw some of the language.
Yeah, there was starting to be talk that maybe next week we get language or something, and it's still possible we start doing things next week. Again, we'll see what happens with people chilling out maybe over the weekend, but certainly now the week following that is now on the table, and that's about, if I'm doing my math right, that's about what I predicted. Yeah. So I'm going to stick with my May 22. We'll see if I can land that plane right on it. Last year we were May 8th, I believe.
No, I think it was 18th.
No,
it was
we
really
weren't.
Late, wasn't it?
No, we are now going to be later than last year. And in fact, yeah, it was by just being over the weekend, we will pass last year, and it will be the latest budget since 2010.
Yep. There we go. Stay with us. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. All right, a couple comments from viewers. Your local government doesn't help. Also, school, town, county tax up 6,000% in 15 years. I don't know about the numbers, but I do find it interesting, Joe, and we don't have to get into this, but we all complain about taxes and high cost of living in New York. And then when the school budgets come down, it's like, okay, the one thing we can control, we're always like, okay. And I know there's points on that. It's just I'm just saying I'm always a little surprised by that.
It is something where there is more control. Now, if the budget goes down, it goes to a contingency budget, which is not dramatically different from the main budget.
Maybe that's the whole point.
But yeah, we spend on schools dramatically more than any other state. Mm-hmm. And number 2 is New Jersey, and we're significantly above them. And that would be fine if we had the best outcomes, which we do not. So we spend by far the most, and we get average sort of educational outcomes. So there's something to be said as far as getting better return on investment for our schools.
Coming from a different viewer, I lost my CDL when I went blind in one eye after botched cataract surgery. But they give CDL people that can't read English, CDL to people that can't read English, and that's factual.
And this is the sort of thing that infuriates people, where I think your average person has no problem with an immigrant.
Right.
They have a problem with someone not following the rules.
Right. The same rules that we have to
That's
follow.
right. Everybody else lives their life by these rules. They're called laws. And you have people that do not do that, and then are rewarded with rewards that people who are following the law do not get, in this case, a CDL. And so I think your average person, if you have an immigrant that is following the rules and came here legally, they're welcomed with open arms.
Yep.
And, it's the rule breaking that's the problem, not some sort of xenophobia like the left tries to portray it.
Exactly.
Just people please just follow the law.
Comment from a different viewer. Do you see a solution to fix the late budget syndrome that seems to be plaguing government? Maybe it's a job more suitable for AI.
I think there needs to be definitely reform in the budget process in Albany. It's something that I think both sides of the aisle in the legislature would agree is something that needs to be done. The governor is far too powerful. Also, there needs to be more transparency. Mr. Blakeman said when he was in Albany this week that when he's governor, he will inject transparency if possible into the process. And I think that's an admirable goal. So it's something that needs a lot of work. And the problem is, like other things, I'm not saying the other 49 states are perfect. But this is something where New York is particularly non-transparent, is particularly problematic, and other states handle their similar business in a way that doesn't get as fouled up.
All right, here's two comments. First one is something there's no answer to it because we've talked about it a million times. How is it one-party rule and they can't pass a budget? That's more of a statement.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is not Republican versus Democrat.
No.
This is Democrats fighting Democrats.
Right.
And over how liberal are they going to be?
Yes.
And so this is particularly egregious because it's one thing if the Republicans still held the state Senate and this was just we had an impasse and a philosophical disagreement that we couldn't overcome. This is Democrats fighting Democrats. The three people in a room are three Democrats.
Yep. All right, we got to take a short break because I got a couple of comments coming in. I know they're going to take a little bit. When we come back, we're also going to talk about federal. One question I want to ask you, Joe, and you can think about it during the break. This whole idea, we've heard about it nonstop, that the Republicans are leaving Trump. And it doesn't matter what the issue is, right? It's like, I don't know, he has a ballroom and now all Republicans in MAGA hate him. Or he does this and it keeps ending. And then yesterday, CNN's at Enton, the pollster, says it's a myth that Trump is losing support among Republicans. We saw that primary earlier in the week. Yeah. When do people stop believing this narrative that everybody hates Trump all the time?
I think it's a fantasy. I think it's the people on the left projecting what they wish and fantasize will happen in the world into reality, and it's not there. I'm sure there are people in Mr. Trump's base. Not every one of them agrees with him 100% of the time.
Right.
I can't think of a single politician that I agree with 100% of the time. But so people vote for people they don't agree with 100% of the time, every time.
Right.
So the idea that I think people would at this point, or after 10 years, or I guess 11 years since he came down the escalator, realize that there's quite a resiliency to Donald Trump. Probably a resiliency that is unprecedented in American history.
I agree. Hey, guess who's watching? Someone's mad at you.
Somebody's mad at me?
Yeah, because you took his Friday.
Is Phil watching right now?
Good morning, Frank and Joe. Thought I was late by a few minutes, but it's not my Friday.
Well, listen, Phil and I are going to be together later today. Okay. We're going to be at St. Bonaventure University, Phil Palmisano's alma mater, and we're going to be recognizing the rugby team.
Oh, that's awesome.
National championship. So Phil is going to be. I am currently in Mr. Palmisano's district. and apparently I'm unwelcome. But I will be graciously welcoming Assemblyman Palmisano to the 148th Assembly District later today.
He sent me a great article about the New York State electric vehicle fleet that was unveiled in Albany. Did you see it? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And he says, see, why are we asking school districts to convert their entire fleets a full 5 years before New York State has to convert its fleet? Why are we asking school districts and property taxpayers to be a guinea pig for this social experiment? Shouldn't the state of New York have to convert its fleet first? Absolutely.
I agree. That was from Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
So
when has Phil ever been wrong on anything?
I've never seen it.
No.
Phil Palmisano is a great man, and everyone should vote for Phil Palmisano.
Yeah.
He is right. The state does this a lot, where they put mandates on private business or local jurisdictions, local municipalities, and then do not do that to themselves. And that is certainly correct in energy, and it is not solely in the energy policy space.
Somebody also mentions electric landscaping equipment, which we actually had fun with. This is one of those prime examples about Albany where you have fun with it at first because you think, oh, this is wild, and then here we are.
Phil does not like that.
Well, let's say what he has to say. Really?
Yeah.
Do you think residents want to pay higher utility bills by subsidizing the rebates for these purchases or have direct ratepayer relief now? We voted on a bill to do that just a couple weeks ago. Yeah, Democrats voted it down.
I voted no, for the record. I voted with Phil. So.
Yep. So there you go. Thank you, Assemblyman Phil Palmisano, for watching it on Fridays with Phil with Joe Sempolinski.
We were like a couple hours after we had a session that day, and I was with Phil, and he was still mad about that bill.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It hasn't gone away. All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. We'll be right back. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Joe Sempolinski. Not necessarily a question for you, Joe, but a comment from a viewer saying, good morning, Frank. So the town of Corning has a $2 million surplus, and Steuben County has a $118 million surplus, and the town of Corning does a reassessment on my property, increases my assessment up $103,000. When does it stop? That's a
large reassessment.
Yeah.
I also had my home reassessed recently, so I understand.
It's not a fun process. I got mine. It wasn't
that. Yeah.
No, it wasn't 103.
Yeah.
And the old, everybody always says, if it's worth it, I'll sell right now. But, Okay. Wow, we got so much to talk about. What do you think about the redistricting in the Supreme Court decision, Joe? We don't have a lot of time. I'd like to ask the tough question.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I think you should not be allowed to draw racial gerrymanders.
Yeah.
And so I believe the Supreme Court was correct. Mm-hmm. And the Democrats are losing their mind over it, but they were drawing specific districts for specific racial groups. Mm-hmm. And the reason they're amped up, you notice they're not talking a lot about the racial side of it. Yeah. They're talking about the political side of it. Mm-hmm. And because what you were then able to do was draw very convoluted districts in southern states.
That Virginia one was crazy.
Well, that was a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
That was a blatantly aggressive gerrymander. And so you had these convoluted districts, and you end up getting Democrats out of it. So it was they're mad about it from partisan perspective. But if you just look at the Constitution, and if you just look at how we are supposed to treat everyone equally and fairly based on race, you can't set aside particular seats in Congress for a particular race. Right. And so the Supreme Court made the correct decision. It will have major political implications, but that's not the Supreme Court's purview. Their purview is to say what is in accordance with the United States Constitution, and they made the correct decision.
And the thing is, I find this whole gerrymandering thing interesting because I think even Democrats have accepted that Democrats always gerrymander.
Well, it's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
New York, they're going to.
But look at Illinois. Look at these places that this has always happened. Yeah. So then Texas decides something, which I always like to remind people. California still beat them to the punch.
Well, somebody else beat them to the punch too, and it was New York.
Well, yes, yeah.
So
that's true.
This drove me straight off the wall. Where in response to the Supreme Court decision, Hochul said, "We didn't start this, but we're going to fight back." And what she said is she is planning. This is going to be a major deal over the next year and a half. Kathy Hochul's planning on changing the New York State Constitution to get rid of the anti-gerrymandering rules. She's going to try and pass a constitutional amendment. There will be a referendum. If it passes the state legislature this year and next year, there will be a referendum in 2027. If that referendum succeeds and all these things happen, we will get an entirely new congressional map for 28. And what infuriated me about her comments was she said, we didn't start this. She started it.
Yes, absolutely.
She tried to gerrymander in violation of the New York State Constitution, which Democrat judges said was in violation of the New York State Constitution in 22. And then she did, it didn't get a lot of attention, she did a mid-cycle redistricting.
Right.
We had different districts in 24 that we did in 22. Yeah. Talk to Brandon Williams, talk to Marcus Molinaro, who lost their seats because the districts changed. She personally started this. Yeah. Who was president in 22 and 24? Joe Biden, not Donald Trump. She personally started this before Donald Trump returned to the White House. So yeah, I don't like gerrymandering, full stop.
Yep, there you go.
But she started this.
She started. All right, before we go to break, guess what? I gave up trying to figure out and asked AI. Here's the results, okay? This is AI. Late budget syndrome is usually caused by a combination of political brinkmanship, overly large omnibus bills, short election cycles, lack of penalties for delay, and a system where lawmakers benefit more from conflict than timely governance. Several reforms could realistically reduce the problem. One, automatic continuing budgets. One of the simple fixes: if no budget passes on time, the previous year's budget automatically continues temporarily. And this removes the threat of shutdowns and prevent crisis from becoming political leverage.
I agree with this AI bot's just diagnosis of the causes. Its solution, it may not be as effective as they think, but the causes that they listed, I think, are fairly accurate.
Perfect. All right. This is our last break, so get your last-minute questions in for Joe Sempolinski. We'll be right back after this. Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio in that studio. Something in Joe Sempolinski. I didn't even call you Phil Palmisano this time.
Good, because Phil's apparently watching.
I know, good. Yeah. What do you think about this? Axios reported. The Democrat civil war is just getting started for Chuck Schumer. This is almost weekly, some attack on Chuck Schumer, a man who before working with Trump a little bit, was praised every single day.
Right. Well, I'm assuming this is in the fallout from the Maine situation where they had the former governor. It was sort of the establishment Democrat candidate, and you got the guy who had the Nazi tattoo on his chest.
Yeah, how did that happen?
This drives me straight up the wall. I am prepared to give Nazi guy from Maine the same grace that Democrats give Republicans over stupid stuff. How many, news stories was there about Elon Musk making an awkward hand gesture?
Right. Oh,
right.
It was
this guy
for a month.
had an SS tattoo on his chest for years.
Yes.
And he's now the face of the Democratic Senate campaigns. Yeah. They are nothing but hypocrites, the Democrats. That should be immediately disqualifying for anybody to run for any office.
And where are you hearing about it? Not on the mainstream media.
You got everybody sort of poo-pooing it, like, oh yeah, well, that was a long time ago.
It's also kind of like, be
baloney.
Careful. Yeah. It's also like, I know this is on a much lesser level, but Ilhan Omar is saying World War XI. Can you imagine? Because Dan Quayle and all that. Imagine if a Republican. Imagine if Trump said World War XI.
And she was like reading it, and it didn't even occur to her that made no sense.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I missed several of them apparently.
I guess they're loose definition of world wars now. Yeah. All right, Blakeman's doing good. He did good on.
Like I said, I was with him multiple times this week. Good. I was with him when he came to visit you, Eric.
That was fun.
A couple of weeks ago, and I think he's starting to get out and about, and the buzz is increasing. I think with your average people on the street. When he was in Corning, what I found interesting is we did a press conference in Centerway Square, and people were sort of. Centerway Square. We were just doing a press conference. There were people.
And it was a press conference because a lot of people said, well, where are they? It wasn't a rally.
No, it was literally just a press conference. Yeah. So there were people that were walking by and they were listening. And, when you're out in public, you never know if people are going to react like, oh, somebody's going to start heckling or yelling or whatever. And these folks, once they listened to what he had to say, and they wanted to do pictures with him and talk to him, just the people on the street here in Corning. So I viewed that very positively. So I've spent increasing amounts of time with Mr. Blakeman here over the last couple of weeks, and I think the campaign is amping up and ramping up, and I certainly am supporting him, and we desperately need a change in governor, and I encourage everybody, and obviously Republicans, conservatives, independents, but my hope is a lot of common sense Democrats realize things are very broken, and
need change.
We need change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's something to balance out the mayor of New York City.
Yes, absolutely. Now, here we are just a little over a month away from primaries. How are the local races going?
So local races, where we're at, we had a very successful petitioning season. Our one countywide race is coroner. That one's unopposed. So congratulations to Mr. Spalding.
Yes.
As far as our state and federal races, it looks like there will be Democrat opponents for Mr. Langworthy and Ms. Tenney. Mr. Langworthy has two Democrat opponents that are going to be in a primary against each other. Yeah. So there will be a Democrat primary. There is a statewide Comptroller Democrat primary. Yep. Senator O'Mara has a Democrat opponent. Mr. Palmisano once again appears to be unopposed. So good for Phil.
Yes. He hates us talking about this. If he's watching right now, he just turned the channel.
Andrea Bailey in the northern part of the county does have a Democrat opponent. And where I'm at is I had a candidate that sort of attempted to file as a Democrat, didn't work out. He's now attempting to run as an independent. We'll see if he is able to get on the ballot.
It's not the easiest anymore, is it?
No, that's more difficult than the partisan petitions, but he's going to try. So it's unclear, I would say, at this point, whether I will be personally unopposed or not. We have great unity. As far as the state, county, or federal, we don't have any Republican primaries. There are several towns that have town primaries. I think it's 4 towns, 5 offices, if I'm remembering correctly, across the county. So depending on the town you live in, there may be a local Republican primary in June, but there's not one sort of across the viewing area. Gotcha. It would be specific to a particular town. In Steuben County, obviously there's primaries going on in Chemung County and in other places.
And I'll make sure to read those as the time comes. And we're going to have some of the candidates on it like that. How can people get involved? Because there's still a lot of campaigning to be done.
Well, I mean, we're still in a petitioning process for Mr. Blakeman's doing an independent petition.
Right, I forgot about that.
I would encourage people, if they want to help out with that, because he needs an enormous number of signatures to do that.
Can anybody take those out?
Any registered voter can take them out, and any registered voter can sign them, regardless of party affiliation. Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated. Anybody can collect, anybody can sign. So reach out to me if you would like to participate in that. That would be the first tangible thing here over the next couple weeks.
Wow, that does it, Joe. That went quick. I think
Always
we covered
does.
everything. What do you think about this? As Markromentum sweeps the internet, Rubio, J.D. Vance. I don't like that one. I think that's forced. No, I don't need to know what you think, but Marco Mentum. That's a stretch.
He is the most interesting man in the world now. He's a DJ. He's a press secretary. He's doing great. I think there's a strong chance that he is on the ticket.
Yes, we'll leave it there.
This year. I don't know how it's going to play out, but I think he's on the ticket.
Joe, thanks for giving us so much time. Let's do it again soon.
Happy to do it.
All right, I'll block you off so Phil gets me every Friday.
Keep Phil happy.
Yes, stay with us or join us on Monday. Yes, exactly. Join us on Monday for Frankly Speaking.